Hello everyone, it's Richard Lewis here with another video, and I'm still struggling a bit with my torn cornea in my left eye. I still feel pretty wretched at the moment. I can't stop crying on my left eye. But the world of esports never stops, and we've had some interesting developments in something that I think is very important that we actually talk about it, because I think WESA may have actually done something correctly. WESA, as you know, are the World Esports Association, and they announced that they were bringing in some comprehensive regulations for all of the teams that would fall under their umbrella. Now, it's not a particularly big umbrella at the moment. We know that WESA only has the ESL Pro League kind of within its remit, but I imagine the idea is that eventually all ESL tournaments, all DreamHack tournaments, everything will be folded under WESA. That's the only way, really, it can have power. And you can see here, I've got an old, that's from an old video there. I should have probably got rid of that before, but these are these comprehensive regulations. And it includes something that I'm very passionate about, and that is multi-team ownership and a personal code of conduct and sanction regulations. I'm not so interested in the latter, so I'll get that out of the way. They've got a code of conduct brought in, which everyone's going to have to adhere to. I'm not too sure what they're going to be. They haven't released the full list of what this code of conduct, what these rules and regulations will be for anyone who's in the organization. But the multi-team ownership prohibition is especially important. So I'll read you the press release. You can see here it says, at WESA, we are committed to creating industry-wide standards in esports that benefit member teams, their players, and the esports industry at large, said Ken Hirschman. That was the newly appointed chairman and commissioner of WESA. These new standards and regulations will further our goal of better professionalizing esports and ensure that all of our organizations are operating on the same level playing field. Under the multi-team ownership prohibition, no team is permitted to be completely or partially owned or controlled by a person or entity that owns or controls another esports team or organization participating at WESA-sanctioned events. For any team that has pre-existing multi-team ownership, the executive board may grant the team up to 18 months to come to compliance. During this time period, the teams will run independently. So the long and the short is they've given the teams that are in WESA 18 months to divest themselves of any financial interests that they may have across multiple organizations. And this is especially important because obviously Na'Vi and Virtus Pro, we know about ES Force. They also own SK Gaming and have certainly looked at acquiring other teams and other brands, and I'm very sure they're going to grow. They're trying to make a news website at the moment. ES Force really want to get a stranglehold on the esports industry, but also as well, you can see they've got Fnatic in G2 Esports, which on this channel we exposed had a financial interest with each other, courtesy of Jens Hilgers. And it does make me wonder, why WESA now think that it's so important when they didn't comment about that at the time. So I've got to say I'm a little bit cynical about the timing, but I still think this is a good idea. And I did a long interview with this over at Deserto. And Deserto, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because it's mainly a Call of Duty website, the interview never really took off. It didn't seem to make it on the front page of Reddit. I don't even know if it got submitted. But I'll give you a gist here of what I said over there. But there's the interview that I did with Kevin Hitt. Now, basically, my initial thoughts on this are like I say, I think it's a good thing. I think multi-team ownership is the biggest danger to esports right now because, look, first of all, what it leads to is, a potential argument that collusion is occurring. And as we know, people have fixed matches, people have thrown matches in the past, and they've done it for little to no reward. Now that we've got cash betting here in a big way, now that we can safely say esports is growing, it's on the Vegas sports book now. We really need to be careful about the prospect for a throw to come in. Let's say, for example, I don't know, G2 esports were, they were really struggling. They had a terrible run of form, and they were playing up against Fnatic, and Fnatic were playing really well. And Fnatic had got into a position where they had already qualified from a group stage into a knockout stage, and they had to play G2, and G2 had to win to get through. Well, initially, because of this financial interest that goes across both of them, it would make sense for Fnatic to take a dive, so you have two representatives going through. But equally as well, what you could do if you say, for example, like ES Force, where you have ties to gambling sites, if you were then able to say to the players, hey, take the dive, let G2 win, we're going to place a bunch of bets on it, and you're going to get a share of the proceeds. This is a huge problem, and obviously it doesn't bear repeating that this is illegal. But now I'm not saying that it would occur. I'm not saying it would go on, but I'm saying the mechanics and the machinery are there for it to go on. If you remove multi-team ownership, you remove any shared or common interests across those teams, and therefore you remove any potential influence from people that just so happen to control the destiny of 10 players, when realistically they should only be controlling the destiny of 5. So there's absolutely that. There's just other things as well. Transfers, roster swaps. We've seen this with Refresh. Very dubious, roster changes, which nobody really is talking about openly, but they should be. I want these things to be transparent. I want, if one organization has a player who is very good and very desirable, and another team wants them, they get them for market value. They get them for what they're worth. They get them for what they represent. I don't want, because there's a shared ownership above both of these teams, that some person just intervenes and says, look, this is the better team. They're buying him. They're buying this player to make them better, so they can be a world number one. We'll make it up to you some other way, but this is happening. That shouldn't be how transfers operate. And when you look at, say, for example, recent allegations about collusion over at League of Legends, because TSM loaned Double Lift to Team Liquid to help get them out of the relegation zone. You can see how these things can affect not just the teams involved with the swap, but everyone else around them in a tournament structure. That's not fair that all the other League of Legends teams now have to know that they're going into a relegation run-in, with one of the teams who was like a surefire lock to get relegated have been strengthened considerably by getting one of the best players in North American League of Legends of all time. And it's been done as a favour. It's been done as a favour because these organisations collude with each other. This is not what competitive integrity looks like. Now, to pick out a few other things, I won't harp on about how it's very hypocritical of WESA to suddenly decide that conflicts of interest are wrong, because they are a conglomerate of conflicts of interest. They are a governing body that is funded and owned by the parent company of the organisation that they want to be a governing body over. They've got Jens Hilgers, who owns teams in WESA or has financial interests in teams in WESA. Actually be an ESL, be the chairman of the board or whatever his title is at the moment. It's a layer of conflicts of interest. But that said, it's never too late to realise that conflicts of interest are bad. And while I think there's some sort of financial play or some strength, they're strengthening their position in the market going on, I still think this is the right way to go. I hope every league follows suit. I hope every league says, we do not want one entity owning 3 or 4 teams in a league. This ruins the league. This wouldn't be allowed to happen in sports. I made a video about this in this channel. You can go check it out, talking about how ES Force did this, and I had all the same complaints, and no one listens. This interview that I did about WESA, and indeed the news about WESA, barely touched the front page of Reddit, because Thorin had an argument with a CS PS player or something. People's priorities are out of whack, and if you're not careful, you're going to find the thing that you care about is going to be taken away from you. You're not going to be able to have confidence in the results when two teams play because they're owned by the same entity. This is bad. The other thing I will say is this 18 months, I'm not confident about 18 months. You don't need to give 18 months to resolve this problem. It's very easy to divest yourself of shares. It's very easy to just simply recuse yourself from ownership. It'll be very easy to find a buyer for your share of a team. You don't need 18 months to do that. To put it in context again, Riot have facilitated sales of teams that have been removed from their league in weeks for a complete sale to a new franchise with a new name and new registration and everything else. They've done it in weeks. 18 months, what that says to me is WESA are going to give these teams an opportunity to basically hide, to scatter. You have 18 months to basically retain your ownership, but find a way either through shell companies like Jens Hilgers likes to use, I should say, like Fnatic like to use, not Jens Hilgers, but you can put shell companies in place. You can get a useful idiot who you control to be the owner on paper, but you still get all the profit, all the money. He just gets a salary. There's so many ways, so many loopholes around this that you have absolutely got to be on point and be very focused about what happens. And here's the thing, I don't think WESA are that focused. I think they want to be able to say, we did something, we fixed this problem, but they're actually not that interested in the results. I mean, what does it matter if the puppet master at ES Force still gets all of the money out of Virtus Pro, Na'Vi, SK, anyone else, still has all of the influence, can still tell somebody what to do? What does it matter if that person he's telling is the owner on paper when we all know it's the puppet master up here? So I think 18 months is just simply too long a period of time to have this transition occur. You are basically allowing these teams the time, the space they need to find the loopholes, find what laws they need to exploit to get everything in place so they can say, hey, we've got nothing to do with it. We're not on paper anywhere, so therefore we definitely don't own it. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I mean, keep in mind, I talk to people who work for tournament organizers all the time, and they all say to me, Richard, do you know how many payments we have to sign to all these offshore companies and shell companies registered in tax havens and stuff? This is dirty. This industry is becoming increasingly corrupt. It's not becoming less and less corrupt. Now that the money's here, people are actually doing shit that looks incredibly shady on paper. And I say that as somebody that's got a long experience at looking at businesses and businesses that behave in an improper fashion. So there's that. Now here's the other thing as well. Can WESA realistically implement this? Well, unfortunately, no. This is completely toothless. And this is why they've gone for 18 months, and this is why they're probably going to facilitate people hiding their ownership on paper. Because, look, let's think about it this way. If I'm WESA and I say, hey, you're in WESA, and we say you've got to abide by these rules, and Na'Vi and Virtus Pro and all these other teams that it affects, they turn around and go, well, we don't want to abide by those rules. And then you go, oh, well, you're out of WESA then. And then they go to another governing body or another league or another organization. Well, you just played yourself, right? Like, you just fucked yourself. Congrats, because now you have strengthened a competitor. We all know WESA don't want to do that. We all know WESA don't want to strengthen competitors, don't want to play nice in the sandpit. They're very much about getting all of the best to come to them. They're already out there trying to hustle with other big organizations, trying to get organizations that you may have seen associated with PEA or out there in a neutral space to come in now because WESA want to be top dog. They want to be number one. Well, you don't do that if these teams leave. You cannot be that if these orgs go and make their own thing where maybe these rules don't apply. So I'd be very interested to see if they're going to stick to their guns. I will wager absolutely that they won't. And the next thing is we need an independent body, and unfortunately, this should have been ESIC. You'll remember I did an interview with the founder of ESIC, that's the Esports Integrity Commissioner, on this channel. Again, it didn't take off. People don't care about this, but the way they made it sound was that they were going to be independent, they were going to preside over esports and enforce these rules. And I will still support and champion ESIC till I see them do something wrong. But here's the issue: nobody else wants to trust them. Nobody else wants to give them that benefit of the doubt, because the money that funds them comes from the parent company of ESL, of WESA, of DreamHack. It's an MTG offshoot. It's in the end of year report that it's one of their esports properties. ESIC is funded by MTG. So how can you have the independent enforcer of integrity be funded by a company that can benefit from integrity not being enforced? This is a problem, and it's a paradigm we're never going to break. Unless we can get genuine independent funding, unless somebody's going to come in and just put a big chunk of money in and go, look, this money, it's anonymous, you don't know where it's come from, people are going to die. I'm just the messenger. The people who've given you this money have completely divested themselves of it. Spend it on setting up a completely independent body that everybody will opt into in the interests of esports. No one's going to do that. We're still back to this old age problem. I heard it for years in my long tenure in esports. When are we going to get a governing body? When are we going to get a governing body? We can't get a governing body because, first of all, you got to fund a governing body, and the only people with money have interests in how that money is spent. Now they're setting up governing bodies, and then they're not governing bodies. They can't be independent. How am I going to tell somebody like Faceit, hey, do you want to have your rules enforced by the Esports Integrity Commissioner when you know that they are funded by one of your competitors? And they're going to laugh in my fucking face, because you would always laugh in my face. This is why PEA wanted to go the route they did. Yes, it was financially motivated, but there are still fundamental conflict of interest problems on the highest level of esports that we cannot get around. So look, one of the theoretics that I saw come up as well was what would happen if there was a major and there was two WESA teams with shared ownership, and ESL were running that major. And a few people tweet about this. You know, would WESA think they can stop them playing? Well, the reality is obviously they can't. First of all, WESA doesn't control the majors on paper. Yes, we all know ESL and WESA are the same thing, but WESA literally only does Pro League at the moment, and therefore the majors wouldn't count. Secondly, Valve is a partnership with whoever they agree to do the major with. So and they get the deciding vote on any matters. They get the deciding vote, so that's crucial. And ultimately, if Valve did want two teams that were joint owned to compete at the major because they'd earned their spot, and keep in mind Valve think about the players first and how it might affect them, then obviously they're just going to say to WESA, ESL, no, this is absurd. However, I see no evidence to suggest that Valve wouldn't support this rule. In fact, quite the contrary. I've told this anecdote many times, I'll repeat it. Back when Alex Garfield was signing up Dota teams to the GGA, it was an open secret that Valve didn't like this, and that Valve employees had said to Alex, if this continues, we're going to have a talk before the next international. Of course, then what happened was GGA became like an agency, it got folded into Twitch. We all know that story. But the reality is, I think Valve understand the need for competitive integrity better than any other developer out there. Certainly better than Riot, certainly better than Blizzard. So I think Valve might actually support this rule. It might be something they want to enforce themselves. I don't know, but when I've had conversations with them, I know they care about match fixing. I know they care about corruption and collusion. I know that they care about these things. Why do you think they took such a firm hand with the iBuyPower fix? It's because they find match fixing absolutely unforgivable, and they realize there's a problem there, and they are trying to deter people from doing it. They haven't deterred people in the lower tiers because those people are never going to necessarily play at a major, and Valve can only have dominion over Valve tournaments, but they are doing all they can with the tools at their disposal. Now, again, I don't necessarily support lifetime bans, but that should tell you how strongly Valve feel about competitive integrity, that they would enforce one. So, all of that said, I think that WESA are trying to take a step in the right direction with this. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see how this can be practically applied. I think we're too far gone. I think the time to have been raising the objections and to exclude people was back when you founded WESA. Like, when you founded WESA, how could you allow teams with a shared financial interest to come into your World Esports Association? Why not say then, if you want to be in WESA and you want to get this money, you got to sort this out? Well, the reason for that is, of course, they needed the status. They needed to ride on the coattails of the branding, of the strength of branding that those teams had. So the whole thing's a fucking mess. I don't think it can be enforced, but I sincerely hope it would be. Now, I'll end the video with just an open plea to other leagues, other people, to the Face-Its, to the MLGs. Certainly it's something I will raise at E-League. But let's all agree that joint ownership of teams cannot happen, that it shouldn't be allowed. I'm gonna do another video, which I'll put out, refresh the Scandinavian organization that are signing up all of these teams. They even said recently in a statement they released called the R-Fresh, the R-Fresh model. They said, we see no conflict of interest with joint ownership. These people will keep going because this is how you maximize profits. Create a team, create a brand, sell it. Sell it for profit to a mainstream sports organization looking to get in esports that don't know the market, don't know the credibility, don't want to build something and want to buy something pre-packaged. We know that's what's happening. So why are we allowing it? Why are we all the people who have any influence over running tournament organizers, why are we saying to these people, we know what you're doing is corrupt. We know what you're doing undermines the integrity of our sport. We are not going to allow you to do it in our league. That's all we have to say. And then these people have really got to think about this model moving forward. If we don't take that stand, universally, as tournament organizers, these people are just going to pick and choose what leagues they go to, and they're going to make money, and we're going to see good leagues trying to do the right thing, which there's no getting away from it. WESA are in the right here. It might be an unpopular opinion. It might be an unpopular thing to say. This is a step in the right direction for esports. But they might suffer because of it. And we can't allow that to happen. We've got to come together and solve this problem once and for all. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Thanks for watching the video. I'll catch you on the next one.